Welcome to the Veganuary podcast, the podcast that helps you to try a vegan diet. It's stuffed full of hints and tips for vegans and veg-curious people. Today's episode is a Choose Chicken Free Week special. So Choose Chicken Free Week is an annual Veganuary event where we focus solely on chickens, how they're amazing animals, we shine a light on their experiences in the farming industry, and we talk about what the alternatives are to eating chickens or eggs. And after all, chickens are slaughtered in their billions each year, making them the most abused land animal on the planet. So we've got some experts joining us on the podcast today to talk about chicken farming, but also what the alternatives might be and what transforming our farming system might look like in practice. So our guests are Morgan and Ashley. So Morgan Salis-Deany, she grew up on a chicken farm and is the granddaughter of a poultry farmer, but the farm is now transformed for growing hemp and also caring for rescued animals. And we have Ashley Niblett here as well, who is the business engagement specialist for Transfarmation, which is a scheme that helps farmers transition from industrial animal agriculture operations to raising crops for human consumption. Hello both, how are you doing?
Hi, doing well, thank you.
Good.
Hi,
Right.
doing good.
Lovely. Okay, we're going to start with I was going to say an easy question. It might not be an easy question, but we asked this to all our guests. What is your dream vegan meal? Maybe Ashley, would you like to go first?
Sure. I would have to say I'm a big breakfast fan. So my dream vegan meal is a really good breakfast burrito with tofu scramble, maybe some potatoes, a really fresh salsa, and some kind of maybe like a creamy chipotle aioli.
That sounds amazing. That's making my mouth water already. And how about you, Morgan?
Well, I am a sucker for Mediterranean food. So like a big Greek salad with like all kinds of hummus and baba ganoush and like a falafel with chickpeas and that kind of thing. Garlic sauce. Oh my gosh.
That sounds
so good.
great. That sounds very healthy.
Mm.
Very good. And as it's Choose Chicken Free Week, I wanted to ask you about chickens. So usually at the top of our episodes, we talk about what the most vegan thing we have done in the week is. And I actually, a week ago, went to visit a chicken sanctuary, which was really exciting. I have to confess that I'm a little bit nervous around chickens. I'm nervous about things that sort of jump and flap. But quite quickly, I felt quite comfortable, and all the chickens were coming and circling around me, and they were real characters, and they were really gentle. I did get pecked a few times. But anyway, I'd love to hear what you know about chickens and what your favourite things about chickens are. Ashley, I know that as well as now working for Transfarmation, you told me that you grew up on a chicken farm. So you have had some experience with chickens, I guess.
I have, yes. I grew up on a factory poultry farm and we had 4 chicken houses. And when I was a little girl, I would go out to the house when the chicks were delivered, and they're these cute, fuzzy little yellow balls. And I would inevitably take 1 or 2 into the house and snuggle with them for a little while before I had to take them back to the chicken house. But in my adult life, I used to volunteer as a chicken tender at a local community farm, which basically just meant that I would go visit the chickens on a weekly basis and bring them treats. And one of the hens would come just every time I came out, I would sit down in their run with them, and she would come sit on my lap and fall asleep. And so I just love how their personalities can vary so much from one another.
Yeah, interesting. I had one just come and curl up on my lap. It was really nice. How about you, Morgan?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think it's really fascinating that they can recognize so many different faces. The fact that they can like dream is really something special too. And I think they can recognize up to like 100 different faces. So, all the different people that they see and meet, if they see you again, they're going to run up and be super friendly with you, which is cool. Growing up, we my grandparents had chickens running around and everything. And I can just remember always thinking they were so cute and beautiful and different, but now I actually have my own personal rescue chickens. And they are so funny. Just their little personalities running around my yard, and the way they do things is just, they're just hoots. They're Delta, Dawn, Pearl, and Gladys are their names.
I'd never heard about chickens dreaming before. Can you tell when they're dreaming?
I mean, I want to think that you could tell when they're dreaming, right? It's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Like, how do we know for sure that they are dreaming?
Our family dog, he sort of yelps a little bit and his legs go when he's dreaming. So I wondered if it was like that. Ashley, I want to come to you first. I'd like to know a bit about Transfarmation. So can you tell us, in a nutshell, the history of Transfarmation and what the scheme does?
Sure. So as you said, we are a project that's working to create a more just and sustainable food system by helping farmers transition from factory farming into growing specialty crops. The program launched in November of 2019 by Mercy for Animals President Leah Garces. And really, she saw an opportunity to engage in the construction of something better rather than just trying to shut factory farming down. So really making those farmers partners and allies rather than adversaries. So we work to provide resources that help farmers overcome the barriers to exiting factory farming, to create models of alternative ways of farming, and to build solidarity with other movements in order to bring about cultural change. So, for example, we connect farmers with technical consultants to help support them in growing new crops. We commission the development of budgets that demonstrate the cost and profit potential for converting, say, a poultry farm to another crop. And then in my role as the business engagement specialist, it's really my job to learn everything I can about the marketing and distribution side of the equation and share that information with the farmers to help them sell their products. And all of this information, all of these resources that we create are shared on our website, publicly and freely available to anyone who needs to use it. And that's at thetransformationproject.org.
It's so interesting. And you said it's trying not to see the farmers as the enemies and allies. I think that's such an important point because farming often it goes back generations, as it does in your family, Morgan. So it's much less simple than just saying the farmers are the bad guys. And I've spoken to farmers who really love to care for their animals and make sure their animals are well treated, but the food system and the way that we rear food and demand food now doesn't allow them to do that. So what are some of the key reasons that a farmer might choose to pivot from animal agriculture to raising crops for humans instead?
Sure. So the biggest reason that we hear about is this debt loop or debt treadmill that the farmers often end up trapped in. So they may go into debt building chicken houses, for example, and then their integrators, these big meat companies, demand expensive changes and upgrades that the farmers really have to make. Otherwise, they risk their contracts getting pulled or canceled. So they take out more debt, and the cycle really just continues, and they end up kind of trapped with this debt burden. A lot of the farmers we've spoken with are also just looking for more control of their operation. They don't want to have to do everything that their integrators are demanding of them, and often talk about wanting to find a better way, a way that's better for their own physical and mental health, their economic situation, better for the environment, and of course, better for the animals, like you just said.
Yeah, great. And then what are the key considerations when you're looking at farms and trying to work out if a transition is possible? And then what are some of the challenges that you might face when transitioning, but also some of the benefits?
There's really a lot of things that come to mind. So from a business standpoint, you have to keep in mind that these farmers are leaving contract situations where they were basically handed resource, technical assistance, and a market for their product. So they're essentially launching and managing a new business. So they have to be really open to learning something new, but also have that entrepreneurial spirit. It also helps to be good at DIY projects, to be creative and innovative, especially when it comes to using that existing infrastructure from their previous operation. And they need to be able to connect with their local community in order to get to know potential customers and other folks in their area who might be able to help them succeed. And there can be a lot of challenges. Not only do they have to learn to grow something new, they also have to learn the marketing and distribution side of things, build a customer base, potentially hire and manage a workforce for the first time, manage payroll. And sometimes they have to get different kinds of insurance or certifications in order to be able to sell what they're growing or making. But the benefits really can be numerous. Farmers tell us how much they're enjoying their newfound autonomy, going back to that desire to have more control over their operations and what they're doing with their land. And they also find deeper connection among their neighbors and within their community, when they're out at their farmers market selling their products or talking to local businesses who are buying their produce. And they also have more flexibility. I know when I was growing up on the chicken farm, I just recall that, somebody had to be there 24/7 in case of emergencies and vacations or any kind of extended time away from the farm really required that either someone be brought in to manage it while we were gone, or we had to wait until we were between batches of chickens. So above all else, though, I think really the main benefit is that these farmers know that they're farming in a way that is providing healthy, sustainable food for their communities. And honestly, what could be better than that?
Great. And I suppose the challenges that you mentioned, that's why an organization like Transfarmation is so important, because you know the ins and outs, you've seen other farms that have done it before, you have the contacts that can help overcome those kinds of challenges, I guess.
That's right.
Great. Okay, cool. Morgan, I'd like to come over to you. So is it Halley Farm or Halley Farm?
It's Halley.
Halley Farm. Okay. So Halley Farm is a farm that has transfarmed. So could you tell us a bit about the history of Halley Farm?
Yeah, absolutely. So Halley Farm started back in the 60s. My grandfather is the founder of Halley Farm. So he was a veterinarian, a large animal veterinarian. He also worked with smaller domesticated animals. And he also was one of the first vets to do in vitro transfer on cattle, like Brahman cattle. And so it really kind of started with that. He would go and teach seminars in Canada, down in Guatemala, all over the United States, that kind of thing. And also do vet work while he was out traveling with our family. He became a very successful vet. He worked with a lot of different country music stars, animals, which is pretty cool. He worked on Carroll Shelby's cattle also. You know him. He's the creator of the Cobra and the Mustang. So that's pretty neat. He also worked on Ray Price. He's an old country western singer, but he had thoroughbred horses. So anyway, he had a really successful career. When that was going on, he decided to start buying land in East Texas. We're located up in like the little northern corner of Texas, close to Arkansas, Oklahoma, and then Louisiana. Really beautiful area. But he actually wound up purchasing close to 1,000 acres of land. Some of it we're still, paying debt off on and everything. But we also had cattle. So we would run, I think, close to 1,000 head of cattle, which is really hard to wrap your mind around if you haven't seen that amount of cattle on land before. And once you get started with that kind of thing, you just keep on growing. So he decided to get into the poultry industry. And they started out with, I think, 4 houses, and then they just kept on adding more until they finally had 12 industrial chicken houses. So that's kind of just the history of Halley Farms and where it kind of started. So.
And with the industrial chicken houses, were they still there? Do you remember them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Northern California. But my mom would take me back out here to visit our family, a couple times a year. And that was like the world out here. My grandfather and my uncles were the ones that, worked on the farm and everything. So the entire, like all of the trip really kind of went around the chickens and like when they would be getting batches in or batches leaving. And, we'd all have to put our boots on and go in there and help out. Um, and I just remember being a kid and just, it was a really, really hard thing to like go in there and see, chickens on the ground, not being able to walk and just the smell, it's like ammonia. It's like very suffocating. So.
And didn't the ammonia cause problems for one of your relatives? Was it your grandfather?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So allergies from the ammonia and the dust being in there, you know, um, it can cause emphysema and asthma and all kinds of different things like that. Even staph infection, just from handling the chickens.
Yeah. So why were you family motivated to switch from to farming hemp instead of farming chickens? What were the main motivations?
Oh, goodness. Well, we started a nonprofit animal rescue, 501c3, back in 2017 called Let Love Live. Our mission is basically to help all different kinds of animals in need, be it an owl that gets hit by a car on the road to donkeys, just everything in between. And that actually started in California. And then we decided to move back out to East Texas to take care of my grandma and help out with the farm because they were facing a lot of issues with not being open to upgrading all of the houses. It would be another $1 million going into it just to, come up to the standards of pilgrims. And they had liens against my grandma's personal house and the property that it sits on. And basically with the lien, you lose everything if you don't upgrade because they'll take it and just use it to take the chicken houses back and all the money that they put into it. So that was the reason for coming back and starting everything and looking for a different, more lucrative way to still run a farm. Because as it is, if you're a farmer, you don't you don't always like stay afloat. You kind of like stay even, or sometimes you don't really make a profit. And after ending the chickens and the cattle, it's really hard to make your payments on land and everything. So that's when Transfarmation and Mercy for Animals really came into our life because we needed help with what our options were. And they helped us with converting one of the parcels of land into outdoor hemp grow and using one of the poultry houses to dry and store our hemp.
So interesting. It surprised me that that the animal sanctuary came first and then the transformation came second. That's really interesting. And it's prompted me to ask you a question, Ashley. How do you connect with farmers? Where do you meet them? Do they usually come to you? Are you doing outreach to find them?
Most of them come to us. So sometimes it's via word of mouth from other farmers. We actually heard recently, even the extension office recommended one that came to us recently. But on our website, there is a form for farmers who are interested in getting in touch with us, and they can just fill that out, and then we can get in touch and start that process of learning more about their farm and whether or not they'd be a good fit.
So Morgan, back to you. Can you tell us about how Transfarmation helped? How did they aid you in the transition?
Yeah, so really just having the resources and understanding where even to begin. Especially being in this area. It's a very conservative area, and everyone is a chicken farmer or a cattle rancher. So breaking off and going in kind of a more alternative route is not something that you see all the time. My mom is very open-minded, and I'm lucky enough to have that same mindset. So that definitely helped with the motivation. But Transfarmation, gave us like the resources of who to contact and ideas on how we could use the hemp in a different way that's not something that you see every day. So right now we're actually turning all of the hemp into oil, like a CBD oil to use for animals that need it, which is going to be really nice and something that we can provide through our our 501c3 to have some donations come back into the rescue.
Yeah, that's great. And Ashley, anything to add? Anything that you know about the transition at Halley Farm?
Sure. I think the biggest thing that we did right away was help support with grant money to help. I believe it was fencing and just help expand that rescue operation for the donkeys. And then I think, Morgan, you can probably speak better to this, but I think there are still more ideas to come for what they want to do with that land and with the infrastructure that they have. So as that kind of comes to fruition, I'll be doing a market analysis for that area in Texas to understand how we can support them in selling whatever they end up growing or creating in that space.
What have you got planned, Morgan?
So, a little history. Transfarmation actually created a grant opportunity for farmers in honor of my uncle, who took his life several years ago. So it's actually called the Bohal Foundation or Trust or something like that. And it's just an incredible opportunity. I received the grant this past year to help me fund converting one of the chicken houses entirely into a greenhouse to grow cut flowers.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. So I'm in the very grassroots stages of getting everything started and clearing the land. After, so many years, things grow up and get almost inhabitable. So you can't even get into the houses. In some areas, there's snakes everywhere and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I'm hoping to start growing this summer. So,
do you know, well, until you mentioned the snakes, I was thinking it sounds so idyllic, like an animal sanctuary, and you're growing the hemp and you're doing the CBD oil for the animals. That sounds so nice. And the flowers, I'm quite jealous. Anyway, I wanted to just ask you, Morgan, about the animal sanctuary. So what kind of animals are you caring for? How many animals do you have? Yeah.
Okay, so we have 100 rescue donkeys currently. We partner with a really large equine rescue called Peaceful Valley Donkey Rescue. They are the largest equine rescue in North America. Basically, their operation goes into different wildlands, like in Wyoming, Nevada, Utah, and where they have, wild Mustangs and wild donkeys. And a lot of times they are brought into a kill pen where they'll go and take them down to Mexico to become meat animals. And so their mission is basically to take them in and then find people who have the land to be able to house the donkeys and get them comfortable with people and, get used to being worked. When I say worked, meaning like get their antibiotics, get their feet trimmed and that kind of thing. And then they get rehomed. So it's an amazing organization. So we're really lucky to work with them. And the donkeys are they bring so much joy. Like anybody who goes around a donkey is how can you not love them? They're characters. And then we also have a huge dog rescue. So we take in from our local shelter in Mount Pleasant. They don't have the housing to hold enough animals. And we're talking all different kinds of animals who have lived in a home for their entire life. And then let's say like an owner dies and they go and drop it off at the shelter, like a family member. And so those are the ones that we really try to pull from the shelter, the ones like that are adoptable and everything. And we do what we can, but it's almost like this never ending thing because we don't have spay-neuter laws in place. We don't have breeding restrictions in place. But we do what we can. And it's a very rewarding but tough job.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing it. And just coming back to the donkeys, on this chicken sanctuary that I was at, they had some donkeys as well, and they were great. But one of them was a bit boisterous, so we were advised to keep away. Ashley, I just wanted to come to you and just say, if there was anyone listening who was, a farmer that was interested in or knew someone, how do they go about finding out more about transfarming?
I think the best way is to go to our website, the transfarmationproject.org, and we have a lot of resources from conversion plans to business resources. And so there's a lot to learn and just take in from that website. And then if they're interested in reaching out to us, there is a form on the website, even just the get involved header at the top. They can click there and fill out that form, and we'll be in touch from that. There's also a link to our Farmer Toolkit website, which is a website that we created in partnership with Animal Outlook. And again, it's just chock full of resources for farmers looking to transition, looking for information on how to sell what they're growing, looking for funding information. And there's a map at the bottom of that homepage where they can click on their state and get resources specific to their state. So that's another great resource as well.
Right, thank you. Okay, I wanted to come on. Morgan, I understand that you are vegan, and I wanted to ask you about that. We like to ask people about their journeys, to being plant-based. It's something we're really interested in. So I wondered if you could tell us a bit about that. Obviously, you've mentioned that everyone around you is kind of doing farming, and you are kind of the alternative one. So I'm interested a little bit to hear about that.
So my journey began actually when I did a yoga teacher training when I was living in San Diego, California. Just, diving into the 8 limbs of yoga and learning what the meaning of ahimsa meant, nonviolence, compassion to all beings, it goes like so much deeper than just with ourselves, and the things that we consume and the energy that we put into our bodies, and it just really motivated me. Not only that, but the fact that I feel so strongly with animals, and they're just, I don't know. It's just like I put myself in them, So that was like definitely the motivating factor. And yeah, it's been a journey. I just try to own it and, not pressure people, but just give them the alternatives for things. And I love to cook. So, I'll make food for somebody and they're usually surprised that it is vegan, and healthy, especially in this area where people love fried soul food. Not that it's not delicious, but you can do it in a healthy way that doesn't cause any harm to anybody.
Yeah. And Ashley, how about you? I wasn't entirely sure if you were plant-based, but you said you grew up on a farm. What was your journey?
My journey started going vegetarian when I was still in high school, so back in the late 90s, and I stuck with that for 20 plus years. And then I just started asking more questions. Why is the Amazon on fire? And what really does happen in the egg industry or the dairy industry? And the more I learned, the more disgusted I became. And so I transitioned to being vegan in the fall of 2019. Just kind of stopped purchasing any more animal products, used what I had in my refrigerator and pantry, and kind of went from there. So it's been a great experience. My husband is now vegan as well. My dad eats a plant-based diet. So it's been fun to kind of encourage others to follow suit and to share vegan meals with people. And like Morgan said, I think much of the time they're surprised that something is vegan or don't miss the meat or dairy or eggs.
Right. And Morgan, you said that you love to cook. Do you have a favourite spin on a chicken dish as we're celebrating Choose Chicken Free Week?
Oh my goodness, it is like so hard to pick just one. But since I'm craving it right now, chicken and dumplings.
What do you use instead of the chicken?
Like Vital Wheat.
Okay.
Or like seitan or tofu. It just kind of depends on what I'm craving.
How about you, Ashley? Do you have a favourite spin on a chicken dish?
I'm a big fan of soy curls. I like to cook as well. And there's a blog that I follow called Monkey and Me Kitchen Adventures. And they have a lot of different soy curl recipes. But the one that I love to make most is their Thai curry soy curl skillet. And it's just a lot of vegetables and a delicious savory sauce. And it's one of those that I can make for company and everybody is happy no matter how they choose to eat.
I've never heard of soy curls. I wonder if we don't have those in the UK. They might be a US thing. What are they? Are they literally little curls of soy?
Yes, it's just dehydrated soy. I mean, it's literally one ingredient, and it kind of has that chicken texture and not like a tender, but more, I guess you'd call it a pulled chicken, something like that. But you just rehydrate them and they kind of soak up all the yummy flavors and whatever you've rehydrated them in. And you can cook them in the oven and the air fryer and the skillet, and they have really great texture.
Nice. Well, I've been trying to eat a lot of Caribbean food recently. I've been cooking lots of Caribbean food, and a favorite of mine is like a jerk chicken alternative where I just use firm tofu. And I make a marinade for it with allspice and thyme in it and other things. And with rice and peas, cooked in coconut milk. Oh, really delicious. I think if an authentic Caribbean cook tasted my meal, I'm not sure it'd pass much muster, but it works for me. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the interview. So I just want to say thank you both for joining me and giving your time. And encourage people to go to the Transfarmation website to find out more. There is a whole page on there about the Halley Farm, which was really interesting. I thought it was a really interesting story. So thanks both for joining us. So all that's left for me to say is that this podcast was recorded at Distorted Podcast Studios and produced by Jim Moore at Bloody Vegan Productions. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and why not rate us 5 stars? If you want to contact us, you can email us at podcast@veganuary.com, and you'll find Veganuary on all the normal social channels. You can access Veganuary's resources by visiting veganuary.com, and you'll receive 31 days of emails full of hints and tips and recipes which introduce you to a vegan diet. It doesn't have to be in January. You can sign up at any time. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.
1, 2